Well, we'll go ahead and get started. Thanks for everybody for joining us tonight. I know we have over 100 registered for this, so I'm sure there'll be others kind of jumping in and logging in as we kind of go. But appreciate for those of you on the punctual side to join us and hopefully learn a good amount. And again, the goal of this build, grow, exit is to focus on law firm value. Overall, a concept that a lot of attorneys, a lot of law firm owners, in prior years may not have focused. I'll explain a little bit about me and who I am and the Law Practice Exchange, but hopefully that's changing, right? Hopefully the focus on, your law firm has value and you want to focus on it more of just not the profitability that an increase of value of a law firm can provide to you, but also the exit price. Profitability today, tomorrow, everything else as you build and grow is wonderful. But having an exit price where you can really monetize the value that you've built through years of your law firm, your business build, is truly a great thing, right? Having this marketplace is, of course, what we're about. And so my goal is to really bring key, truly experts to the table that can talk to you about components of what builds value in a law firm. And so when we go through this, the individuals are here to really talk to you about how to improve it. And it's going to improve it for your immediate benefit. You will see a more profitable law firm if you take some of this advice that they're going to give you today and deploy it. Or if you talk to them and follow up and use their consulting and advice further, they can help you build a more profitable, more successful firm. But also, it is going to increase your value. Because really, when we look at value in the market for a law firm, it comes down to three components. It comes down to how strong your financials are, how strong your brand, your uniqueness is, and then really from a concept of how strong your systems are that the firm is not reliant on you. And so we'll jump into those a little bit. First, as we kind of flip through the slides, Heather, if you can flip back to the previous one, that's me. So for those of you that don't know me, Tomlin Festi, attorney CPA, but I'm the founder of the Law Practice Exchange. With the Law Practice Exchange, we offer the marketplace for buying and selling law firms. So we have built that marketplace community, that application. If you want to sell your firm, if you want to buy your firm, jump over to the lawpracticeexchange.com or the marketplace.law, and you can get started to find that opportunity for growth through acquisition as a buyer. Or if you're ready, whether now or in a few years, to potentially exit your firm, you can transact, match with buyers, find that. And then our LPE advisory team is here to help you every step of the way, really to guide you through that marketplace to find your right exit or to find your right acquisition. We've helped over 200 million in revenues be preserved and transacted over the years, been at it for over a decade. And excited, of course, to be here with you to bring this and share this knowledge so that whether you're ready to sell tomorrow or 10 years from now, 15 years from now, you can really focus on not just what improves your firm today, but really what improves that value for when you're ready to exit. So with that, just a quick recap, Heather, if we'll go to the next one. These are the three components: financial health. What is your firm's financial foundations and profitability? And Brenda's going to jump in to really walk through how to build strong firm financial health as it relates to the value of your firm, right? Why is it important to a law firm's value? The second one that we're going to ask Ruane to really share his expertise on is assessing the visibility, demand, the scalability of your firm's brand, how to really be strong in marketing, the true branding of your firm, and how that really dictates value. And then the third one, of course, is Jay, the expert on the systems, right? Jay, I think I was listening to your law firm blueprint podcast, you and Seth, your most recent one. You guys are getting into a bunch of AI discussions, I think. And, so again, the discussions of how to build systems. And this really goes to how does that impact value? It has a lot to do with how your business can continue without you, the owner, and hopefully can be seen as a more valuable firm to potential buyers, everything else. So that's it. We want to try to use this time most effectively by sharing these experts and their knowledge. And I'm going to try to turn it over to them with going through and sharing these key takeaways, advice, everything else. So with that, I'll kind of turn it over. Just a couple quick housekeeping before we intro Brenda. If you do have questions Anything else that you want to put in the chat, feel free to do so. I'll try to interweave them and stop some of the experts if I can do that. We'll also try to save time at the end if there is time to do so, to answer any of those questions. But we'll try to get that flow. So use that chat or use the Q&A to do so, and we'll try to monitor it. And again, thank you for being here. I want to try to preserve as much time as possible for Brenda, Ryan, and Jay. So we'll get started, and we'll get started with Brenda Barnes. Brenda, thank you so much for joining us. Greatly appreciate it. And for those that don't know Brenda, Brenda is a CPA. She is our director of law firm financial analysis with the Law Practice Exchange. Brenda has over 35 years of expertise in just law firm financials, accounting, planning, right, with a specialty in compensation modeling. And so it would be hard pressed, I think, to find somebody with more expertise in law firm financials and working with law firms over the years to build healthier financial systems, healthier financial and compensation models. And so we're fortunate enough to work with Brenda as part of our expert team, but also Brenda has great relevance and does her own advising on compensation modeling and everything else. So Brenda, thank you so much for joining us. I will turn it over to you and appreciate you sharing the insight with everybody today.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tom. Thanks for having me. Well, as Tom mentioned, being a CPA, I am definitely all about the numbers, and so I take it, that lens anytime I'm approaching evaluation. But today we want to talk about how you can prep yourself and prepare, whether it's be an internal succession plan or an external buy. And the first thing to do is to clean up your financial books, right? So, why is that important? I come across clients all of the time who books are just messy, and they haven't taken any time to scrub their balance sheet, their P&Ls all over the place. So we just want to, as you are preparing yourself for this exit strategy, if that is your end game, certainly take a look at your financial records. Hire an expert to look and help you get those cleaned up and get your books ready, because when you have a third party prospective buyer looking, or even an internal succession plan, they're going to want to see that you have taken a lot of time to put forth and have some integrity in your data and your financials. So accurate financial records matter. Why? Because foundation for decision making and growth. They're absolutely critical for valuation, mergers or acquisitions, and they reduce risk during audits. I don't think necessarily that law firms are audited much, but I do think that the comptroller has more of a lens on law firms these days. So just keeping your books clean so that when and if it is your time, you are prepared. Some other things as why accurate financials, it informed decision making, right? So accurate data provides a clear picture of the firm's financial health. It enables leaders to make informed strategic decisions about budgeting, hiring, expansions, other cost cutting measures. The other component that I really look at is profitability analysis. So law firms, have a different spectrum of how they record their time, if they record their time at all. But certainly, when it comes down to the end of the day, profitability is king. It is cash in the bank. Having the ability to assess whether or not your attorneys are profitable, whether your practice areas are profitable, and even in your clients, if you've got profitable client work there. So definitely taking a look at profitability analysis. The other item that is important is cash flow management. You should have all of your data coming to you in real time. So someone, your bookkeeper, your third party outsourced accountant, whomever it is that's taking care of your book, should have your data in the system in real time, so that your dashboard at any given time, you know exactly where your pain points are, if there are any. You know how much cash is in the bank. You have liquidity to cover your expenses. You've got payroll coming up, you've got rent coming up, and most importantly, partner compensation, right? The other important reason to keep good books is just transparency to your partners. Client financials build trust among the partners and the stakeholders, and it allows them to trust the system. So when we talking a bit here about compensation systems, it's very important that your financial statements are tied out and you've got clean, good books. The other thing is just evaluation of performance. Detailed financial records allow firms to evaluate their performance against benchmarks and industry standards. I mean, I can't count on two hands how many times I've been asked, how do I compare to other law firms? How do I compare? What are the industry standards? What are the benchmarks? If you have good financials, you'll be able to compare your information to those industry standards and see how you stack up, and then of course be able to improve upon that. So just key tips. We wanted to just give you something. Reliable accounting software. There are double entry software solutions, so that's your practice management and your bookkeeping or accounting. So it's typically Clio, QuickBooks, Fresh, that sort of thing. So you want to make sure that you have good, reliable accounting software and practice management software. If you go with a fully integrated where you don't have a double entry system like Centerbase or something like that, you won't have to do the additional record keeping, but all of it should tie out. Revenues should match in both of your systems. Conduct, regular reconciliations. I shouldn't have to say that, but your bank account should be reconciled on a monthly basis. Many of your outsourced third-party providers will actually reconcile your books on a weekly basis so that you have that information again in real time. And then lastly, involve a professional, a CPA or a financial advisor in the process. They can certainly add a new lens to looking at your financial profitability and give you some insight on some things. Trust accounting, extremely important. As you know, everything's got to tie out. How do you record your client cost advance? Extremely important. Are you in compliance with the IRS rulings? All of those things, there should be just a checklist of items that you go through. So, all right,
And,
next slide, Heather.
and Brenda, real quick. So when you talk about, real-time accounting to make good decisions, I mean, typically you see books that are maybe reviewed monthly, right? By a bookkeeper, an accountant, otherwise. And so, being able to even, keep compliant with trust, keep compliant with invoicing, everything else, you're really not getting real-time information, is what you're saying,
That's
right?
exactly right. Yeah. So
And
I
so,
mean,
yeah,
yeah.
go
So
ahead.
yeah. So I mean, I've had some clients whose bookkeeper, would let the credit card reconciliations go, and and that's kind of getting into the details of the mechanics of it. But everything needs to be attended to on a, as frequently as possible, so that you do have good, fresh look at the books.
Yep. And I think that's typically probably what we see, and what you see is, it's reviewed once a month, right? Or it's always trailing. So you're, trailing information so you don't have that real time. So yeah, I think that's great advice.
Yep. If reviewed at all, right? So,
Correct.
yep.
Correct. Yes.
The second piece that we're going to talk about is just revenue growth and diversification, and that's extremely important in this process. Clearly, because revenue growth is going to allow you to focus in on client retention and relationship building. It's also allows you to invest in marketing and business development so that you can grow your top line revenue. Diversification, of course, is important so that you don't have all your eggs in one basket. So if a client, the one major client pulls out on you, you don't have a significant revenue drop, because typically when we're doing evaluation analysis, we're looking at sometimes 3 to 5 years worth of historical data, and we ask for explanations of why we have any kind of revenue decline. So when you're going through this process of looking at your financials and looking at your revenue and diversification, it's extremely important to expand practice areas, as well as have some diversification in your client base, so that if there is a downturn, then you certainly can attend to it. Diversification alleviates the firm relying on a single client or industry or practice. Revenue growth also will increase profitability, of course, because you're going to be able to get higher margins in certain practice areas or industries. And you should always be looking at how to expand that top line revenue. And you're looking at, what is my overall profitability going to increase by adding in those resources to expand that? So, there's a lot that goes into the financial components of putting, a well sound firm together. But certainly, I'm going to try to give you as many of the highlights as possible. But certainly, happy to talk to any of you individually about your financials. One of the reasons, again, for revenue growth and diversification is you can attract and retain top talent. Recruiting is extremely competitive. Lateral market seems to have kind of gone to a little bit of stagnant state right now, but most firms are still, trying to get good talent in and compete with big law, even though they cannot pay those big law compensation salaries. So it's very important that you have a strategic plan that will increase that revenue growth so that you can attract and retain top talent. And the other is your partners. You may have some very key partners that have got a big book of business, and if you are not moving the firm forward with additional revenue growth, you could end up, risking a loss of them. It also enhances competitiveness. Sustainable revenue growth demonstrates a firm's market strength and ability to compete in high profile cases and clients. So, may not want to be just a one stop shop. So, if you are, a family law practice, you may want to add in an estate planning section, or you may want to add in a business group, anything to try to diversify your practice group a little bit, so that when, when the law, when it's cyclical and there is a revenue downturn, that you're able to at least hedge your bet a little bit with that. Next slide, Heather. So, yeah, but go back one slide, Heather. It looks like we skipped one. So this is, or maybe we just missed one. So why do we need compensation plans? So one of the slides that I think got missed out of here was about having compensation plans and why it's important to keep modernization of the finance of your compensation plans. Um, you know, I would say that most of my discussions typically evolve around, how do I attract and retain top talent? How do I drive business development to my top line? How do I support the succession planning process? My people want more pay equity, and transparency in their compensation systems. And then, how do I align my goals and strategy with my compensation system? And I will, tell you, all of those things are extremely important generationally. That the generations that are emerging in law firms now, they want to know what it will take to be that next level promotion. What will it take to be, what's my path to partnership? What's my buy-in gonna be? What does that look like? And they really do want measurable marks. It's interesting because for so long we've said people are tired of the 1,800 billable hours, or 2,000 billable hour marks, but they really do want you to tell them what it'll take to hit the certain marks to get their bonus. So I would say that for compensation plans and modernizing your compensation plans are extremely important. Do you want to increase your business origination? So do you want to make that a part of your compensation system? Then certainly, that's a component that you would add in there. The other piece on the slide that's not there is just earnings, the EBITDA. Tom and I talk a lot about earnings before income tax, depreciation, and amortization. It's your net profit. And when we are doing a evaluation, we typically are going to ask you for what your add backs are. What are your partner preferred expenses or partner expenses, and we're going to normalize that profit and loss to increase your cash flow, right? And so when we are looking at that, it's extremely important that, whether depending upon, of course, your tax entity selection, whether you're a sub S or not, but it is very important that you have really good financials that will be able to pick out those line items, and easily be able to determine what your cash flow. Most of the buyers in our world are lawyers, right? So lawyers are typically very conservative and very skeptical, and they want to see a high cash flow. So cleaning up your financial statements, making sure that everything is in place, looking at your compensation system to ensure that you have, built a system that's going to recruit and retain and is going to give respect to the partners that are there, are extremely important in building your financial system. So, with that, I think the final takeaways, Heather, if you want to go to that next slide. Okay. Is just, immediate action is review of your books. I think audit's a little heavy word, but certainly review your financials. Make sure that they're clean, and if you need another set of eyes, sometimes that's not your tax accountant. I hate to say it, because they're really just going to take whatever you've got on your books and move it over into their tax system. But certainly go through your system. If you've got liabilities that have been hanging there for years, clean them up. If you've got items on there that just need to be adjusted, go ahead and get those reconciled and clean. Look at your overall profitability. Identify areas where you can diversify your revenue streams. You can look at your expenses to increase your net profitability, but I always say, don't step over dollars to pick up pennies by going through and cutting your expenses. So, look at your compensation plan, make sure it's growth focused, has good metrics in it, and I think you'll find yourself with a real sound financial system.
Thanks, Brenda. I mean, I think those are great, takeaways. A couple things that I would just kind of leave with too is, that real time, accounting knowledge, right? So if you are just really getting reports once a month, and I think Brenda, you kind of mentioned, you're not looking at them, the biggest thing that we see when it comes to looking at value of a firm is, do you understand your financials of your own firm, like the business that you've built? And just having real-time financials and really going through the right kind of review of those on a monthly basis, on a bi-weekly basis, more often than not, is going to give you knowledge to look at things, right? And I think, Brenda, that's where you mentioned bad decisions, right? If you have bad information or outdated information, you're going to make bad decisions. And so really getting into that point where you do that. And the other thing that I really noted is compensation. Typically, if you have a firm, that is even yourself, right? Compensation is the key expense for most all firms. And so getting that model, and Brenda, apologies about the slide that's missing, but that part is so important, because if you can get compensation right, it really does set potentially the growth of your firm, the retention of talent, which Brenda mentioned. But overall, it's going to impact the bottom line on profitability, and it's going to then have a huge impact on your value and as you drive that forward. So compensation planning is its own world, where Brenda spends a lot of her time, has written a book on it. Heather, if maybe we have that link, we can put Brenda's book in the chat for others as well. But overall, it's a huge area to get right if you're looking to fuel your growth and value. So, Brenda, thank you for that. Greatly appreciate
Of
it.
course.
And yeah, appreciate it. If you can stick around, wonderful. If you have to hop off, totally understand. We're going to go to our next, expert to really drop some wisdom. And Ruane, I'm going to, of course, bring you in, and I think we have a bio slide for you that really doesn't do who you are as justice. And so Ryan is here to talk about creating a law firm brand, marketing. When we talk about valuation of a firm, how strong, a lot of times I call it your intellectual property, but really when it comes down to it, it's the uniqueness of your firm. How have you really built a brand marketing that is its own, attachment to the business, right? Hopefully beyond yourself. A lot of the firms that we have a lot of personal value, right? The attorney goodwill, but we're talking about firm goodwill and really how to build that. Ryan, I'm going to let you do a little bit of your bio because again, we've got your best era consulting, which I know is your current role and everything else, plus being a lawyer and founder at McKean Law, plus private or prior of your $100 million verdict and everything else that you have that is great things. But overall, Ryan, I'll turn it over to you just to give a little bit more of your bio and hopefully, help us understand how we can really focus on driving that marketing, that firm branding.
Well, Tom, thank you so much for having me. And really, almost everything I know is courtesy of my friend Jay Ruane, who is on this call. I'm just a knockoff Jay Ruane and
No pressure
the
there.
the the opening act here. Okay, so I'm Ryan McKean. I'm probably most well known for co-founding and becoming the CEO of Connecticut Trial Firm, building my firm up from really nothing to about 40 people, close to 8 figures in revenue, before ultimately exiting and selling my interest in the firm. Um, I was always tasked with marketing. That was one of my roles in the firm, and it was a role that I had up until I left, along with being the CEO. And currently, I work with at Bestera with my former marketing director, Brittany Green. Brittany Green helps law firms across the country, I guess world now. We're getting people from New Zealand, help them with their marketing plans. Like we don't sell SEO or PPC, but we really take a holistic look at what's going on in a firm, identify what they're doing, how it's working, what's not working, and what some opportunities are in accordance with their vision and budgets. And if necessary, connect them to some vendors. So I wanted to start this talk, having exited a firm, having sold, one of the real problems, or one of the things that we operate in, right, is all law firms are service-based businesses. So it is sort of inherently, difficult to scale, and difficult to sell, but it's not impossible. Um, and really, what I mean by that is look, if you are a Microsoft, right? It doesn't matter who owns shares of Microsoft, but really like the reputation of the attorneys or the people in your firm, in the community, are are contingent and to some degree on people, right? One of the things that a lot of people talk about, is the idea of branding, and I'm going to get to that and spend some time on branding. But one of the things I want to start off with is sort of dispelling the notion that you have to have like a branded firm. And what do I mean by that? Like I was Connecticut Trial Firm. That is a branded firm. My name was not on the front door. But if you look at some of the largest and most valuable law firms in the country, the AmLaw 100, like none of them are branded. And even in local markets, like there are historic, personal injury firms that in my market that were named after two partners who haven't been alive since 1980, and but they have built up, brand reputation. So don't feel like if you're out there that you need to be like North Carolina estate planning law firm or Charlotte, North Carolina estate planning law firm or whatever. I think that matters less than the actual association that the community has or your communities have with your brand, with your name. So it's really interesting and notable. It'd probably be a theme through Jay's talk as well. Sorry, just get. Um, which is that one of the key components, I listed 5 things that I really think can help you drive value, brand marketing value, and like Tom said, it will make you both a better firm, even if you don't sell, but also make you more desirable to a seller. And I wrote down 5 things. And the very first thing I wrote down, Brenda, was data. So we work with law firms, and the lack of marketing data that they have is stunning. What they don't know is absolutely stunning. They are oftentimes, oh, I pay $5,000 to my SEO vendor, and they give me a report telling me my website is good, or something like that. They really lack any sort of grasp on what money they're spending, how it's moving the needle, what assets they're building, and what the value of those assets are. So the very first thing that you should be looking to do, if you're not doing it, is setting up a CRM. um, we used at the firm, we use Lead Docket. But popularly people use, also Lawmatics is one we see. There's Clio Grow out in the space. Some people use Salesforce or Pipedrive, or HubSpot. There's no shortage of CRMs, whether legally specific or non-legal specific. We use Lead Docket, integrated nice with our case management software, built out for personal injury, and was just easy for us to use. But they all functionally do the same thing, which is to capture name, address, how people found you, what they were contacting you about. Also, it should balance it against some data regarding how much it cost you to generate that lead, and give you some consistency and ideas. And one of the things that a good CRM will do, and this is a the money's always in the details, in life and in business. So what the a good CRM will do is it will use a plugin that like accurately promulgates the address, right? So if you have mailing addresses that are inaccurate, like they're worthless, if you are going to have a list, right? You want your mailing addresses to be correct, because otherwise things will come up undeliverable. You want your emails correct. You want your data correct. You want the notes taken. So if they contact you again, you really want to know as much as possible about why they're calling you, about what they did, about how they found you, right? And keeping that really in that CRM. You also want to be tracking, historical trends. Are you getting more or less leads over time? Is your marketing spend, are you spending more on marketing and getting less? Because somebody who's going to be a buyer is going to look at it and they're going to say, well, look, it's not just plug and play. I can generate, 10 leads a month or 10 cases a month, but I've got to spend $3,000. And I feel like if I just did a Google ad campaign myself, I have a person who's really, really good at Google ads, and I think I can do this for 2,000. I can generate 10 cases, right? That's sort of your competition, which is always sort of if you're looking to sell, which is what somebody's alternative is. And so if you're showing strong returns, you're showing that things are progressing, then that's a sign of managed marketing. And you also want to have, um, you know, things like access to your Google Search Console, which will provide you with data on your website. So if you're spending on SEO, like you should be having more links into your website. Your site should have a higher domain rating. You should be ranking for relevant search terms. So sometimes we see this with law firms. There was one personal injury firm that we were looking at their website, and they had a ton of traffic, but we couldn't. We were trying to figure out why this firm had a ton of traffic. Well, it turns out some post that they wrote about dog food, don't even ask me why, was ranking like number 3 nationally on like best dog food. Like why Google indexed it this way, I don't know, but it just sort of caught, and say that that was getting like 20,000 hits a month. It was all this traffic, and but that's not all traffic is created equal. So you want to have that really historic understanding. I would invest in an Ahrefs, ahrefs.com account. Buy the account that's like 100 and some odd dollars. At least get access to some of your data. It will have historical data there, because what you want to be showing to a prospective buyer, and really what you want to be showing to anybody, is that you are ranking for the relevant keywords. So you don't care about, best dog food brand in the US if you're an estate planning lawyer. But you really care if you are ranking number one, say, for Connecticut criminal defense lawyer, if you're Jay Ruane, or Hartford criminal defense lawyer. Like those are terms that a buyer is going to want to purchase. And so you want to know that data, you want to be able to show that data. And if your providers, if your website providers in particular aren't sharing that information with you, and they're just saying, hey, look, we're getting you 30,000 clicks a month. Well, that's not telling you, I think, a valuable story that's going to be very attractive to a buyer. So that was number one, which was data. Number two is I really think that there is opportunities to build a brand, and I'm going to talk about what brand is, but there's really opportunities for small firms to build a brand that isn't just TV and radio and billboards and things like that. I don't necessarily think that that's necessary, because if you think about it, we're here in Connecticut, and Connecticut has some of the best pizza in the whole entire country. New Haven, pizza capital of the U.S. Self-proclaimed, but I think well earned. And I don't think I've ever seen an ad for Sally's Pizza. Maybe Jay can correct me on it, but they don't need an ad, because people know who they are. They know their reputation. They've delivered amazing pies for 100 years, and people know what it is that they're getting. And they are in a very small pizza shop. They don't have many seats, and any given day now, thanks to Dave Portnoy, really, there is a massive line outside of Sally's every single hour of every single day, because if you are focusing on the people that you're serving and providing a high level of service, people in your community are going to find you. I once had a boss, and he made a great point. We represented a lot of restaurants, and he said basically with a restaurant, there's exactly two ways you can stay in business. One of which is to be, you've got the best custard, and or best, you can substitute custard for hot dog, cheesesteak, uh, peanut butter and jelly sandwich. You've got the best in the world, or the best in New England, or the best in the state. You could be located on a roadside in a rural town that's hard to get to. People will drive, line up, find you, and pay money to get your custard, hot dog, cheesesteak, right? If you are known to be the best, that's maybe a hard thing to achieve, but it is certainly possible. Or conversely, like, you have to have location. So lots of fast food places have location. Chain restaurants certainly have location. I was in an airport last night, and there's Chipotle, Sbarro, a host of other sorts of places. They are able to buy location. I don't think anybody thinks that Sbarro is the best pizza, though it is very. I think it is good, but not certainly Sally's, where people are going to wait in line for hours. So really think about your client service and developing your reputation, because I think really, when we talk about marketing, my definition of marketing always has been, for my firm, marketing is every single outbound communication that your firm makes. So it's every email your lawyer sends to opposing counsel, to clients, to prospective clients. It's every article you write, every talk you give. Anything that goes out of your firm is marketing, is branding. And if you can focus on really making that excellent, you can steer towards that, rural, vendor in the middle of nowhere who's selling hot dogs on the side of the road, but they're fantastic. and you can succeed there. And I think do succeed that. Along with the sort of excellent services, in like Sally's or like places, I think a lot of that depends upon your ability to have repeatable processes, right? So when I talk about how uh, uh, excellent service is part of it. It's going to be like the systems and processes that deliver it that are going to help you achieve it. So like what does your welcome package look like? Do you have an email drip campaign welcoming new clients? Do you have videos that are explaining? Do you send them brochures? Do you have a book? We would send all of our new clients a book that I had written for people on personal injury law, that helped them understand it. These are real, not just products, but they're actual processes that you're using to distinguish your brand. And those things are things that can really run without you. They're things, I could sell the title of my book. Somebody else could be the author. I could stay on. But if that's the kind of thing that is driving that level of service, that is a saleable thing, that is repeatable. I don't have to write a book every single time. It just goes out. Um, so think about that. Think about how if you're doing divorce, like you have really dialed in the divorce experience for your clients. So it doesn't matter what lawyer they get, what para they get. They're going to get a same experience where things are explained to them, where fees are quoted, where pleadings are up to a certain standard. You're going to get all of those things from this firm, and I think that is just a such valuable way and an underlooked marketing way, especially when you're looking in the context of value, because then if I'm an outside buyer, I can see the email drip campaign. And it could be my name at the bottom of the email instead of the seller's name at the bottom of the email, right? That is plug and play because and you have to think about it too from the perspective of a buyer. In some degree, what a buyer is buying is speed. They can maybe create all of this themselves, but it would cost them time and money to do it. So it is economically efficient to buy what it is that you have done, because they're not having to spend money on developers, content writers. They're not tracking the data on open rates. They're getting that, right? So it's not like what you do is going to be, uh, like it's not like somebody's not going to be able to recreate it, but it's going to take them time and cost them money. So to me, like that kind of process becomes incredibly valuable. So document your processes. Because of Jay, we had a big firm wiki that we had written down. We had over 850 pages by the time I left, and that was getting 2,000 views internally. We had instructions in our CRM and our case management software, and we were really focused on providing a very high level of service to everyone, and in a way that level would be turnkey for anybody, and that is marketing.
Ryan, just to jump in real quick, I think that's a really important point because I think you're talking about what a lot of people call your customer journey, your client journey, right? But how you bring them in, whether it's from intake on, your point on like being part of the brand and also showing to a potential buyer like, yeah, here's everything we built for the intake, the brand, consistent messaging and awesome service throughout. You're absolutely right. For most buyers, they would be clicking their heels to see that because it's so easy to transfer, right? Well, once you've built it and you've built that knowledge, you've built that process as part of your overall brand and the messaging that you consistently are delivering to whether they're prospects or their clients. It's a key asset that's going to just get a buyer excited, get you better price and better terms. So yeah, I think that's a huge point. It's not just about the marketing, right? It's so much more
Well,
that goes beyond that in building that brand.
and it's one of these things, Tom, where if you are saying, "Look, I generate 1,000 cases a year, and it's all on a pay-per-click campaign," Somebody can hire a vendor to re-engineer that pay-per-click campaign and spend that much money and basically probably get the same result as you. So that's not necessarily the most valuable thing that you are doing, because you are essentially, when you're marketing like that, like you are renting space. And you're not owning, and you're not getting the fruits of that ownership, which sort of gets to a point, which is that you want to do the things that are hard for other people to do. If it is easy for somebody to do, it is not that valuable. If it is hard and expensive for somebody to do, it is incredibly valuable, right? So we have easy and cheap on one end, and we've got on another end of the matrix hard and expensive, right? You want to be doing as much hard and expensive things into the upper right hand quadrant of my sort of imaginary quadrant that I don't have a slide for, but so if you're out there listening, I'm drawing in midair a square with four things. Um, but you want to really be in that you want to be in that quadrant, right? Um, so yeah, brand. And I want to talk about what I think branding is. What I think brand is. Brand is simply not something. It's not your colors. It's not your logo. Even though those people will say it's brand colors, I probably said it too. Uh, but brand is really how people feel about you in your community. Are you the go-to firm for this? Are you known for this? Are you known for treating people well? Do people have a good experience? This really gets to me, measuring your net promoter score, which is something I'm huge at, is so tied into the brand, because you want to know how your clients, your customers are really thinking about you, what that reputation is into the community. So don't just think, and a lot of times when marketers in the space talk, especially in the PI space, which is competitive, they'll talk about branding plays, radio, TV, traditional media, social media, branding campaigns. They'll talk about all of those things, or sponsorships of pro sports teams. Um, but really, like, you could be, and I think about this because I grew up in a firm, and it was a small general practice firm placed in East Hartford, Connecticut. Where if you're not from East Hartford, you're probably like, I've never heard of this firm. But the firm did no affirmative marketing. The website still looks like it's out of 1998, like GeoCities. If you were to look at it, I'm not going to give out the name, but they had been in the town since like 1950, and they were trusted. They were trusted lawyers, so their brand was trusted, and so people would call them whenever that they had a legal problem, whether it was a car accident, a divorce, an arrest, business issue, a will. And well, a general practice model is not a way I would go in 2025. That level of affinity that the community, the very small, it was like the local law firm had, was incredibly valuable and carried. Really the firm for 60, 70 years without having to spend into any sort of SEO or PPC or any sort of actual marketing budget. I don't think that that's the wisest course, but understand that you have a brand if you are a solo attorney with one client, because it is what they think of you. And so don't think like you have to even be the biggest real estate lawyer in the state of California, where if you are the best, most trusted real estate lawyer in Modesto, you have a viable, attractive business that somebody may want to purchase, that may be saleable, and is certainly going to be profitable. So those are the four. We've gone data, excellent, service, repeatable processes, brand. Talk about a fifth thing that I think is saleable, which are digital assets. Um, you know, a good website, SEO based website, that is very hard and expensive to recreate in competitive markets. I was talking last year one of the top SEO vendors in the legal space, and we were talking about crowded markets, and he said, look, in a city like Atlanta, if you gave me 6 years and a client gave me a blank check, I could not rank their website number one. Could not. 6 years and an infinite amount of budget, and I couldn't rank it number one. Okay, so and look, you're probably, if you're out there, you're probably not, trying to compete for number one car accident lawyer in Los Angeles or something like that. But really, SEO is about content. It is about age domains. It is about inbound links that can be hard to get. It is about showing your expertise. It is about structuring your site so you come up locally. So maybe, it's, your the area that you really want to be known for is like Manchester, Connecticut. Okay, well, build the top ranking website in Manchester, Connecticut. Figure out how to do that in a way, because those links, that longevity, the content, the traffic, you have to think of it like real estate, and you can still buy some beachfront real estate in the digital space. It is disappearing a little bit quickly, uh, especially in like personal injury markets. But if you are actually investing in a site that is something that somebody can change the name of, that is something that somebody can change the colors of, can update, while still retaining its really its SEO juice. I mean, the other thing that is very hard to get are two things really. One of which is social media followings. And certainly like the algorithms are becoming more less. Facebook used to just be, it would show only to your followers, but now with like the advent of Reels, it's trying to show relevant content to whoever may be interested in it. So Facebook knows very much that I like making homemade pizza. So I don't follow every homemade pizza creator, but my Reels are filled with people in talking about their dough recipes and things like that. So understand that. That's probably less so, but I still think having a number of social followers in a well run social site is seen as a trust signal and an asset to you. And I would also say reviews, your reputation online. Again, you have to look into the ethics of that one and the saleability of it. But at least in theory, if you merged with another firm or you stayed on as for purposes for a period of time, keeping those reviews are very hard to get. Um, so in sum, to sort of bring it all together, it's starts with your data, starts with, it's really like I hope if you're out there, like some of the stuff I talked about, like a CRM and digital assets, like that would have made zero sense to the lawyers who founded the first firm in the 1950s. But if I talked about excellent service and being able to repeat it over and over again, and people having a good reputation, if I use the word reputation instead of brand, that would have worked in 1950. And you know what? That's going to work in 2050, and that's going to work in 2150. So those things can still be effective to you. You're not needing a massive marketing budget. And also, like, don't delude yourself if all of your business is coming through paid ads, that you actually have a saleable asset there. Your client list may be valuable, and keeping that client list data, email list data is it can be incredibly valuable, because that is one of the things that I hear firms talk about, which is, what about the list? And a lot of firms, they don't have even email lists organized. They don't know how to email all their clients if they wanted to, or they don't have names and emails together. Their contacts are a mess. Keeping that there. And I guess lastly, as sort of a digital asset, a phone number is something that can be saleable. If you are a firm that has done, you know, like Jay, 10,000 DUIs, and you're in the Jay's got you in the phone number as, my lawyer or whatever, that number itself is going to produce a certain number of calls for you. So, consider making your phone number memorable as something that maybe something somebody wants to buy. But that's what I got for you. I think my time's up.
Yeah, that Ryan, that was tremendous. And I greatly appreciate it from, kind of the start to finish of where you are on that journey. I will tell you, you use the example of like, hey, you could have unlimited funds and you wouldn't be able, in certain major metros, if you're going for personal injury, like you can never get to that top tier. I've heard you talk on, other of your coaching, programs and everything else, like, hey, maybe you don't want to compete in that major metro, but if you go out to a suburb, you can be in the top three, right? Or you can be number one. And I think that's kind of what you were saying here as well, because
Yep.
those, as they relate to value, are things. Because for buyers, they're looking for growth. Acquisition is, of course, one of their options for growth. Marketing, just spend normally, is the other. And so some of our largest deals have been where, look, I could go and I could keep spending, but it's more efficient to go acquire who already has achieved that top ranking in this market, right? They've already established that brand. So acquisition actually makes more financial sense to get to where I want to versus that endless spend of starting from scratch. So I think it was a great example you gave, especially as it ties into how our buyers perceive value, because they're always weighing the option. Do I just spend normally and naturally on marketing and growth, right? Or do I acquire for that growth? And if acquisition gets them to the top, where spending normally would take them a lot more money, or they may never get there, that's something, if you can build to the top of whichever market you're in, that's a true asset that can be transferred. So I think that was a great point, and then greatly appreciate everything else. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you, Tom.
All right, we're not the last release, right? We're gonna turn it all over to bring it over to Mr. J, who again all of us think so highly of. Jay, I brought you in to talk about systems. When we talk about systems for law firm valuation, one of the biggest components and one of the biggest questions or concerns that we get from our buyers looking at firms is, how reliant is the firm on the owner, right? Or ownership that's looking to exit, that's looking to transition over time because they see risk in that, right? And so I know, Jay, you've been on the forefront of this. And again, before I butcher your bio, really by not giving you enough credit, I'll let you kind of intro it. As I mentioned, I was just listening to, your great podcast, and I know you guys do that as like, I think, a Facebook Live, the law firm Blueprint with you and Seth Price. But Jay, go ahead and give us our intro, and thank you for talking to us about really just powering your business, right, which is a law firm, with systems to hopefully enjoy a better ownership seat, today, but also more value later.
Well, thank you, Tom. Thank you for having me. And not to harp on the restaurant sort of examples that we've been having, but you know, law firms tend to survive even as a solo lawyer because our margins are high. We have artificial barriers to entry when it comes to licenses. But if you look at restaurants, are the businesses that have the highest failure rate in the country. But what has one of the lowest failure rates in the country? Franchised restaurants. And that's because they've built into the restaurant all the systems that are needed to be able to run it, even if someone who's coming into it isn't from the restaurant industry. And if we can get the first slide up, one of the things is is interesting about slides is that excuse me is that the reality is that as a law firm owner, we are thinking about our clients, we are thinking about our business, we are thinking about our family and our personal lives. We have a million things going on in our head, and the reality is that you really can't scale your firm, if it is in chaos. And a scalable firm is what does interest other people. So I want to talk a little bit about the Pareto principle. If we can get the next slide up. One of the things that I want to talk about is that you've often heard that 20% of your 80% of your profit comes from 20% of your clients. or perhaps 20% of your wardrobe is worn 80% of the time. Well, the reality is that 80% of your firm functions on the same 20% of items on a daily basis. I mean, the reality is if you're opening up 10 cases a year or 1,000 cases a year, you're opening files and you need to have a system for that. If you are, if you're dispersing payments to personal injury victims, or if you're like me, if you're filing motions to suppress, in my cases, those things are repeatable, right? And when they're repeatable, you can build systems for it because, quite frankly, I have unbelievable ADD. I bounce all over the place. It's probably why I'm a legal entrepreneur and a lawyer, and not working in somebody else's business, because I am not a good employee. But what I found earlier in my career is, as I started to scale and do more and more of the same types of cases, in order to make myself the type of profit that I wanted, I needed to have systems in place so that I can do certain things. And so what we're going to talk today about is the three components to an effective system. And that's really the most important thing. And I like to break it down because I am a lawyer. I do like to read. I can get into conversations about the Oxford comma with anybody and have these long debates about those things. I break it down into standard grammar rules. So we get the next slide up. And what we're going to talk about is the question mark, the exclamation point, and the period. And the first one of those things is the question mark. And we're going to talk about what is it, right? Because if we are going to define our systems, we first need to document what it truly is. Is it a process that you need your team to accomplish? Is it administrative? Is it legal? Is it operational? Is it how to unlock the door? How to turn off the answering service? Is it how to file a motion with a court, or how to send completed documents to a client? What you really want to do when you are defining your systems is really narrowly define the task at hand. Now, there might be multiple systems within a larger system, and that's perfectly okay. But what you really want to do is you want to break it down to its core functionality so that you can define what is it that you are teaching somebody how to do. And there's a million different ways that you can document this. I myself started with literally a Word file with, this is how we do these things in these steps. And it came from my inability to be able to add postage to a meter over a weekend when my staff was away from the office. But you really want to break it down. So you don't want to say, how do we open a file is your only system. What you want to say is, how do we set up the file folder? What internal components go in? What information is on the left side of the file and on the right side of the file? Are we even using paper files at all? Are we doing everything digitally? Well, what are our subfolders? You really want to narrowly tailor it so that you can define it, because this is the stuff that is important to people who are going to execute your systems for you. Can I get the next slide? Now, the next slide is the most important slide there is in defining systems, and we need to tell people why we're doing it. What I need you to do is take a moment and think about your support staff. They are there to support you. They are not there to frustrate you. They want to be helpful. They took the job to be helpful. But you cannot be a dictator and have a wonderful culture at your firm. I know lawyers who have been dictators and have tried to build a culture around them being a dictator. And what happens is, in a few years, because people are miserable, or a few months, they wind up leaving. And one of the things that you need to tell them is why you want to do certain things in a certain way. And so here's my example for that. When I build my trial notebooks, I often tell my staff, hey, listen, if you're going to help me put this together, I want to have my police reports on yellow paper. And if I tell them that that is part of the system, make sure the police report in my file is on yellow paper, and I tell them no other reason, you know what happens? They start putting it together, and we're out of yellow paper. So it's not that big of a deal. I'll just do it on white paper. And then Jay gets to the courthouse, and I'm looking at the folder, and I'm saying, where's my yellow paper? And I have it because, as I've explained to my team, when I'm in the middle of a cross-examination and I need to impeach a lying police officer on the stand, I can turn to my notebook and very quickly identify the police report because it is yellow, not white, and I can pull it out of my notebook without a single hesitation and be able to approach this witness and be able to cross-examine from the document and show them where I have found an issue in the case. Now, had I told my staff, hey, I want it on yellow just because I'm the dictator and you better put it on yellow, they don't necessarily get it. But because they are supportive of me, because they want to support me, when I explain to them, hey, there's a good reason why I want it in yellow, I have never, since I started explaining it to my people, and it's actually set forth in our internal wiki, this is why Jay likes it in yellow, right? I have never had a situation where we have run out of yellow paper in the office. In fact, every single one of my support staff members is now issued a 500-page ream of yellow paper on their initial onboarding day by my firm administrator because they appreciate how much that matters to me when I'm in doing the thing that allows us to have the jobs that we have servicing our clients. And so it's really important to not only tell them what it is, but tell them why you do it this way. Maybe you need to do this because it protects the firm from, bar complaints and grievances. Maybe it complies with IRS rules. Yes, today we had somebody who came in with a rather large amount of cash and they immediately said, we got to fill out form 8300. Let's get it going. And next thing you know, it's printed and it's ready to go because they understand that, hey, if we take in a large amount of cash, we have IRS requirements that we need to do. And this can prevent us from being, or at least help us from being audited because we didn't do the proper forming. The whole team wants to rally around you. And so the components of a good system are going to include the what, which is the question, but it's going to include the exclamation point, which is the why. And now let's go to the next slide, please. And this is the one thing that I think everybody needs to buy in on. There really can only be one way to build systems in your office and apply them. Because if, Betty does it her way and John does it his way and Mike does it his way and Paula does it her way, now we're at a point where we're not following systems. Everyone's going to have their own thing going on. And that's not a systemized law firm. And the problem with that is if you go to sell your law firm, either now or in 5 years, if there are 4 or 5 different ways of doing things, what happens when your firm starts to get integrated into another firm or a new owner comes in and he's talking to Paula one day, and Paula says, we do it this way. And then Mike says, no, we do it that way. It's going to cause all sorts of confusion. And that's what we want to avoid. Number one, if a lot of times, if there's a sale, there's some period of time where the departing lawyer is still stuck in the business to some extent to make sure that the transition goes smoothly. And the last thing you want to do is be dealing with headaches after you've cashed your check because there's no more money coming after that. And so now you're dealing with headaches and you're not getting paid for it necessarily. And who wants that? Right. But in realities, we need to make sure that everybody is doing it our one way. We get the next slide. And then the last slide, the last part of the component is a period, right? So we've started with the question, we have the exclamation part, and now we're talking about the period. And the period is, this is how we do it. This is our one way. And if we have it one way, we can allow somebody who is brand new to the office, who has no idea what you do, no idea where things are stored in the office, no idea about anything legal. I like to say, think of it as your kind old uncle who knows you're in trouble because you're underwater, some of your staff have left, and they want to help. So they're going to show up at the office, but they're going to have a million questions for you. And if they have a million questions for you, you're not going to be able to get anything else done because you're just interrupting your day over and over and over again, having to answer their questions. You want to have your system set up so that they can follow along and make it as simple as possible. It's interesting. I heard a comedian once talk about how when they went on MapQuest, that tells you how old this comedy bit was. But even now it happens with your iPhone or your Android. When you put in someplace that you're leaving, you're heading towards in your house, they tell you to take a left or right on your own street. Now, I guarantee you, 99% of the people know, okay, if I'm heading in this direction, I got to take a left out of my driveway, or I got to take a right out of my. You already know that, but the computer doesn't know that you know that. And so we need to think about it along those terms, where we're giving them even the initial steps of the process so that they can be followed. And we do it this way, and we do it all the time. Because if we don't do that, we're not going to have effective systems. And if you don't have effective systems, what happens? You wind up getting interrupted. And if you're trying to execute the legal part of our job, which requires deep thought, sometimes literally closing your door and just thinking through a problem, if somebody is going to be knocking on your door saying, hey, I have a question about this, and it's not so clear in the systems, all you're going to be doing is getting yourself dragged into other people's problems on a daily basis. And that's not something that you want to have to suffer through. At that point, you might as well go back and be the only person there doing everything. And nobody necessarily wants to be that. I mean, I don't know a single law firm owner who wants to do everything. I mean, think about it in the restaurant. Do you want to be chef and maitre d' and busboy and wait staff? You don't. You want to do the thing that you love to do, right? And do the thing that you love to do, and do it over and over and over again, and really get satisfaction. We go to the next slide. So, okay, go back one. Okay, so if you take nothing else from this presentation today, just remember your plain grammatical rules: question mark, exclamation point, and period. And if you can define your systems with each one of those, you will be able to set up systems that your entire office can follow. Now let's go to the next one. And so the question then becomes how to get them to actually do this for you. And one of the biggest challenges we have as law firm owners is that we want things done in a certain way, but if we've been functional for a while, you are immediately going to get pushback from your staff, because they're going to say, boy, you know, if this thing gets systemized, I'm kind of useless to the law firm. You know, they don't need me anymore. And while that may actually technically be true, what we need from them is to not worry about the minutia of getting the stuff done on a daily basis, and treat our customers exceptionally great. And that's some of the stuff that Ryan was talking about was, you know, the things that connected people to lawyers in 1950 was that personal relationship, and that can't be digitized away. And so what we can do is involve our people in the process of generating the systems. And so I started my systems years ago by just saying to my staff, hey, listen, don't do anything for the next 2 weeks unless you are writing it down on a legal pad what it is that you were doing, not all the steps, just the title of what it is that you do. And then we found, wow, we do a lot of the same things over and over. Let's focus on getting those core systems first. And I said to them, you guys get to write the system. Talk amongst yourselves. Make sure that you agree that this is the way certain things should be done in our office. And it empowers them to, number one, take ownership of the systems that you have, but also gives them a feeling of ownership in how things are accomplished at the office. So they are going to feel more connected to the office. I like to do gamification in my office, where we say, hey, look, everyone's going to build a new system. And, you know, now my office has 45 people. And so what I'll say is, hey, for the month of February, we're going to generate or review 45 brand new systems, stuff that we haven't really documented well. And when we do get done with these 45 systems, I'm bringing a food truck and everyone's getting lunch, you know, that type of thing. You can do it on a much smaller scale, but I like to build in rewards for them if they are going to do it. I mean, cash is king, right? You could say, hey, look, you get done with 10 new systems that we use on multiple times during the course of a week, there's $100 bonus in it for you, and you give them $100 cash. You never put a bonus in their weekly paycheck, because then it goes to their bills. But you hand somebody a C note on a Friday at 4 o'clock, and they're going for pizza and beer, and they are thinking good thoughts about you, right? And so you want to do those types of things. I always love to ask the question. And so the first thing I do, and I've been doing it for so long that they won't even come to me anymore. So now I have to have my next level below me ask the question. But the thing is, the minute a staffer asks you, how do I do something? You ask them, hey, did you look to see if we have a system for it yet? Because if we do, they shouldn't have asked you that question. They should go to there first. And if they don't, guess what? They just inherited a job. Create the system and then demonstrate it to the entire office and let us know that it's been built so that nobody ever has that question again. And then once a year, we will do a corrections contest. We do two things in my office, once in June and once in December. We do spring cleaning and winter cleaning where we touch every single file, make sure that we're up to date on everything. And every December, in the week between Christmas and New Year's, we actually will have an audit of all of our systems to make sure that everybody has corrected things like phone numbers change in a system, contact people change because of retirement for us at the courthouses. So we want to make sure that we have corrections that are done on a daily basis, on an annual basis, so that you can make sure that people are having up-to-date systems, that they've bought into the systems and they've taken ownership of the systems. And if you follow the question mark, exclamation mark, and period, you will be able to implement systems in your office in no time. So that's all I can tell you in this short time about systems, but I could talk about systems till the cow come home. If you want to get in touch with me, you just shoot that with your phone's camera, and that'll insert my contact card into your phone. And this is another system. What we do is we send this to every client who gets us. Either they hire us or they don't. They all get this by way of an email so that they can put me into their phone as lawyer attorney, because they are never going to remember my last name, but they will always remember that they've got a lawyer's phone number in their phone. And you will be amazed how many people will call us and say, I didn't know who I was calling, but I knew I met a lawyer 7 years ago and I need one now. And it's a personal injury case. Can you help me? And we say, no, I'll send you over to my good friend, Ruane McKean, and he can get $100 million verdict for something like that. So that's the truth about systems, folks. But I'm happy to answer any questions that you might have.
Yeah, Jay, that was tremendous. Really, really good. And one of the pushbacks we get a lot of times, because again, as this connects to value of your firm, we talked about it with Ryan, like building out brand systems and just really going through that. But anytime a buyer can come in and see how your firm runs or can run without you as the owner, right? Like it's not all up here, it's down on whether it's a piece of paper, whether it's an automated system, complex software that you've built, anything else, that just makes them feel more comfortable. Like I could step in and run this business because you have invested in, these systems, whether it's for intake, whether it's for operations, or your team is operating on these systems, which is the best, right? Where you've really got that team and you're like, look, they handle it. We review it periodically. One of the biggest pushbacks we get is, I've tried that before, but just as I kept going or whatever else, it just seemed like it kept changing, kept changing. Are systems ever really 100% perfect?
No,
Like truly.
you're never. I mean, you're never going to have a system where you have a system for everything, for every question that comes up. But what you can do is you can build into the systems. Hey, here are 2 or 3 different ways that we can resolve this. I mean, look, the restaurant managers at any of these chain restaurants, they're given a book, right? And the book says, in these situations, you want to do this, but there's still some level of trust. We're not hiring robots yet that are only going to execute exactly what they're programmed and nothing else. But the reality is when you, and this is one of the things about systems that I love, is that by implementing the systems to take away the need for thought on the most basic things, it frees up that mental bandwidth for your people to actually put conscientious thought to the stuff that doesn't have systems. So when that client calls in and has a problem that they've never dealt with before, they're not frazzled because their whole day has been a dumpster fire. Everything has gone smoothly. And so they can take a few moments and actually think through the process. We have a motto in our office: be a problem solver, not a problem reporter. And so I've empowered my people to be problem solvers. And so much so we give an award away every month for the person who solves a problem. I just found out today that somebody solved a problem in the last week. That was a pretty major emailing problem, and it never even got up the line so that I knew it existed.
Yeah, I think that's tremendous. And the other thing that we get a lot, and this kind of goes to one of the questions that we have in the Q&A, is just, a lot of small practitioners really say, look, I can't build a system, right? Because they really think of it as this true complexity, everything else. They don't think of, the yellow legal pad that they've written down the exact same thing over and over again for every single consult is kind of a system. You probably just haven't documented that system, right? You haven't gone through that
Well,
exercise. So
look,
the
I mean,
question,
God, here's the thing about that. We all have systems that we use every day that we don't even know exist. And here's the perfect example. Tomorrow morning, when you go to take a shower, I guarantee you, you wash certain parts of your body in the same order every time you're in the shower. That is a built-in system that you've probably been using for 40 plus years. And only now that I've mentioned it to you, you're seeing that that system exists.
yeah, no, that's a great point. And this is the question in the Q&A is, I'm a true solo, no staff right now. How do I start? Like, where would I focus on building systems as a true solo? Jay, Ryan, I think you may have some opinion on this, and maybe even Brenda, but any recommendation for a true solo of where to start? Start with you, Jay.
I'd hire a law student. I'd hire a law student and say, follow me around for the next 3 weeks and write down what I do. And then let's start building the systems. I mean, look, if you're a true solo, the reality is you're trying to do everything. It's impossible to do everything and do it well. So you do need to have assistance in some capacity. It doesn't have to be permanent assistance. And there are law students out there who work in the night school who, decided that they were going to quit their day job, or maybe they were like me, right? I bartended on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday nights and went to night school the other nights of the week. My days were wide open, right? So I was some lawyer had a job out there and I could have done it for 3 weeks during the day. I would have jumped at that chance. There are people out there that are looking to do discrete jobs, and why not task them with doing that stuff for you? So that would be my recommendation.
Yeah, that's great. Ryan, Brenda, anything to add to that or otherwise before we kind of close and wrap and go forward?
I've been there, Tom, and I remember writing systems on how to print stamps in my daughter's playroom when I was a true solo, and it just felt really weird because I was like, I'm the only one who prints my stamps. Like, of course I know how to do this. But that was actually born from me hiring a college student intern, being like, oh, they can take stuff off my plate. But I remember being in Cape Cod one day and getting calls saying, how do I print stamps? And I was like, how long have you been at this? 4 hours. These were the most expensive stamps in the universe, but it was really my fault. So look, in 2025, we're talking, this was me in 2015. In 2025, if you're out there, get a loom.ai account, start as you do things, either talking at Loom AI, screen sharing. It will, create transcripts, summaries, videos that you can link to, and, get some system where you can upload that stuff where people can find it. So loom.ai would be my suggestion.
Absolutely. Yeah, Ryan, I remember that in the law firm days and for the LPE days, but just, you start writing stuff and you're like, it's kind of funny to be writing this for myself. But as soon as that first hire comes in and they're like, can follow 5 points, you feel like you've won a little bit from that side. So absolutely. Well, thank you. To Jay, Ryan, and Brenda, greatly appreciate it. Hopefully everybody that's attending has really, taken out of this what can build value in your business, which again is a law firm. And I kind of separate those two so you can really focus on it. Overall, if you're looking at your financials, if you're looking at your brand and you're looking at your systems, you will improve. And when you improve, and you're looking at that, you seek the right help from those panelists that are here. These experts are here to help you. And so if you seek out that help, or if you're just focusing on it yourself as those takeaways, your overall, work-life balance will improve because you've implemented better systems that Jay's helped you with. right? Or your brand and marketing helps and you see that revenue growth come, right? Your financials, so you can really focus on profitability, keeping comp incentives in line so that your, attorneys, support team and everything else can really help drive what your goals are, and really doing these things for you now that are going to help for that exit later. We focus on the exit for the most part, but we really want you to get in the mindset of, building value in your business. My takeaways from this, of course, are, Brenda looking at this, bad books is going to equal poor decisions or bad decisions, and then ultimately a bad price for your firm. Like if you don't have good books, it's not going to allow you to make good decisions about how to be healthier and more profitable, how to have better compensation, how to do the right things in your business. And that, of course, is then going to impact the value. Ryan, I loved it. Brand is so much more than just marketing, right? I mean, I think you really, everybody thinks about brand just being like, oh, here's my marketing or my paid ads or, billboards or anything else, but really getting into the service, the systems that support it, and how people think about you, from that component. Also, you mentioned, brand is not just, tied to the business. It's you as that solo attorney that's just doing what you need to do. Jay's a perfect example of that with having a QR code that goes Jay the lawyer, right? So that, lawyer attorney is, searched in your phone and people can find that as just a great aspect of how to build both personal and the, business brand. Jay, the three components aspect of that, I think, are huge to successfully implement. Really looking at, getting the team buy-in and only having one direction is definitely key. So as we go forward and everything else, I greatly appreciate it. A couple just general takeaways that were kind of reoccurring themes to me, and I'd like to bring in as building value, real time. Ryan brought this up as like data in, like using CRM, right? Doing that. Brenda brought the aspect of, having real-time accounting and having that knowledge. If you're not reviewing, if it's something that every 3 months you're looking back to say, what did I do on marketing? Or you're not really looking at the data that you're putting in and the data you're taking out, right? You're doing yourself a disservice. That data input and the tracking is huge. Do hard things, Ryan. I think that's what you said, right? To like really true build those value drivers and really the things that are hard to replicate. And I think that carries over with what Brenda talked about, what Jay talked about too. I mean, if you build a system and it's your system, that is a tangible asset that a buyer in our marketplace is going to get excited about because it's unique and it works for you and it works for the business. Is it perfect? Absolutely not. But you built it, took the time to do those hard things. The same thing on the marketing. What's hard to replicate is what buyers are going to see value in. And then if you've tracked and it's successful, it's a key part. Jay mentioned you can't scale when things are in chaos, right? A lot of times I had talked about, succession planning, getting ready to sell is make sure your house is in order. And I think, Jay, that really, goes to that aspect. If everything is in chaos, start really itemizing those tasks, what you do on a daily basis or what your team does to really push that forward. So thank you, each of you, for taking the time today. I greatly appreciate it. Hopefully everybody attending and as we do replays of this and everything else can really see that. If you want to talk to any one of these experts, really, truly, just let us know. This QR code goes to us, but we're here to help you, of course, to talk about preparing you, looking at the value, building that otherwise. But Brenda, Ryan, and Jay are also here to help you build value in your firm. And that's where we look. These are trusted partners for the Law Practice Exchange to make sure you can get the right advice now. Maybe you're not ready to sell your firm. Maybe it's 20 years from now that you want to do that and you want to focus on just doing the right thing. This panel can help you get to that point. But if you want to know where to start, use this QR code, book a 15-minute confidential call. We can talk about where you are and how we can direct you, get you over to Ryan for the great consulting and coaching that he's doing, or to Jay, or to Brenda, or to wherever you need to really build and improve for when. And that when should be when you are ready to exit, you have built something that's tremendous. You have built a business that is a law firm that has significant exit value. And if you've done the right things along the years, whether it's you give yourself 12 months, 24 months, or 20 years, you will do that. And the marketplace for buying and selling law firms, which is what we do, is essentially growing so that you have those options to do so. So thank you for joining us. Again, to my fabulous experts and speakers, thank you. I greatly appreciate it. And thank you for everybody that joined us for this. Hopefully the takeaways that you got, you can implement tomorrow and start improving the value of your firm. So thank you so much, and everybody have a great afternoon and evening.